I'm 26 and female, and I'm engaged and will be getting married to a man I've been dating for 3 years, Samuel. I absolutely adore him. He's one of the most caring and thoughtful people I've ever met in my life, and he's not hard on the eyes either. Sometimes I look at the marriage of others and consider myself lucky. I have a friend who was so eager to get married and ended up getting married to someone, so she found out that she had no feelings for him. She hopes to get a divorce from him soon, and I find it ridiculous that she would even do all that in the first place. At least it's for her happiness, I guess. Her story is also another reason why I'm still a fiancé. Well, as perfect as Samuel seems, there's one problem that I have with him. Or at least a problem I have with his family, and his mother. Anytime I mention that his mother doesn't like me, Samuel laughs it off and says it's all in my head. It upsets me because I think I should know when a person likes me or not, at my age. The first time I noticed her behavior towards me and talked to Sam, I listened to him and tried getting on his mother's Grace's good side. I'd brought this bracelet that I thought would look really nice with one of her outfits and given it to her as a gift. I noticed the reluctance in her expression as I handed it to her, but then I was glad that she had taken it. 2 days later, I'd seen the wrapping and the trash at the back, and it did not occur to me that she might have thrown it away. But after months of never seeing her wear it, I knew that was what happened. There were other times that convinced me that Grace was not looking for a good relationship with me, and in the end I accepted it, deciding to focus on the rest of the family since my future mother-in-law would accept me into her heart. For a short while, she'd got a lot softer on me after hearing that my grandfather had passed. But that was almost 2 years ago, and I hope she comes around soon. I don't want to get married to Sam and have his mother be a problem between us. Another reason I was so into getting married to Samuel was the fact that he was from a large family. He lived with his mom, 4 siblings, some of whom are married, and his widowed aunt, who stayed in their family house ever since her brother, Sam's father, passed. I, on the other hand, was an only child. In fact, I never had the experience of bonding with siblings, so I was so excited to finally have brothers and sisters-in-laws. They were mostly lukewarm, and I initially thought that they didn't know how to take in someone else as a sibling. To my dismay, our relationship is still the same to date. When I talk to Sam about this, he mentions that they're that way with him as well. I don't think it's true. When I go to dinner with Sam at his family's place, everybody seems so lively. However, when I go alone, maybe to say hello in my spare time, the awkwardness is so great that I can cut it with a pair of scissors. I really hate that things are this way and will do anything to change it. I haven't thought of anything yet, and the ones I have thought of did not yield the results that I was hoping for. I can't even go to my mom to talk about this because she's not really a fan of the family. She visited once with me and she really disapproves, but has tried to be understanding since I have my mind set on Sam. The most important reason, I would say, why I have not agreed to set a date to get married is because the family is absolutely so secretive. I mean, 3 years ago when I met them, they were almost indifferent, and I actually missed that. When I ate with them, it was like I wasn't there. So I would listen, I would laugh, and eat without contributing so much to the conversations that were being held during dinner. Now, the conversations tend to pause midway, especially when they revolve around the family's finances or events that may require money. I know that the family youngest, Adam, is planning on doing his master's degree. But as it was being discussed during dinner 2 weeks ago, the conversation stopped when Sam's aunt told him to wait, and that provisions would soon be made to ensure that Adam furthered his studies. A few people glanced at Sam, and I wondered if they had laid that burden on him. I had then dared to ask for the first time why the conversation had ended there. We had barely discussed how the money was to come about, how long it would take, or anything else. No one had answered me, and I don't think many will understand how mortifying that really is. Sam had told me that things would be fine, and his encouraging smile was the only thing keeping me from melting there in my seat. I'd spoken to him about it when we left, but he didn't want to talk much about the subject. I stayed quiet after because I didn't want to upset him, but at the same time my curiosity was piqued. Was the problem money? Did they feel ashamed about talking about this when I was there, or was it something entirely different? In my determination to get answers, I ended up making a mistake. 5 days ago, I went to visit with Sam for the usual dinner. Grace had asked to speak to him privately, and this is something that happens time to time. I'd stay in the kitchen with either Sam's aunt or the eldest in the family, Marge. See, this time, I excused myself and lied that I need to use the restroom. I found Sam and his mother talking in hushed tones and managed to catch a few words. I know they were talking about a wedding, or was it 2 weddings? And then there was the money topic again. It was hard to hear anything, and I must have made a noise while trying to listen because the door swung wide open, and I saw Grace looking at me with irritation upon her face. I was thankful she had not brought it up at dinner, but the disapproving stares I kept getting from her, it were more than enough to lose my appetite. Sam, he wasn't any better, and he refused to speak to me on the way back home. I know I've upset him, and I don't know what to do. He had left my apartment as soon as he dropped me off, and I'm confused as to what to do next. My mind has come up with so many scenarios. Were they discussing my wedding with Sam? It was hard to believe that's what it was, given their facial expressions after seeing me. If not me, who else was getting married in the family? My mother, she called later the day, and for some reason I broke down in tears. I've promised to see her later on, or I'll be visiting tomorrow. Things are fine between me and Sam now, by the way. He told me that he had not known how to react after I was caught eavesdropping, and I can't really fault him for it. At the same time, I need somebody to vent to about his family, and that can't be him. Maybe after my visit by Mom's, I'll feel way better. I'll update you guys when that happens. What's up, everybody? Mr. Redito here. So today's story, oh my. It seems like OP is the outcast in the family, and she just doesn't know what to do. And now there's hushed tones about 2 weddings? What are they talking about? Well, the first update came out 2 weeks later. And if you guys are new to the channel, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump into the first updates. I'm overthinking again, and this time I have every reason to do so. Because how else can I explain my own fiancé being with another woman in his apartment? It makes absolutely no sense no matter how I think about it and wrap my mind around it. And the worst part is that I can't even bring it up because I found out about it by accident. So I'm left with the information I have and my overactive imagination. I can't even talk to my mom because I don't want to hear her say "I told you so." Something she's fond of telling me anytime I talk. And I'd rather not tell my friends about this. The Lord knows if one of them will go behind my back and speak to Sam about it. I'd gone to see my mother, as planned, and after telling her everything that's transpired, she's upset with me. There were the usual questions. When would I realize that I wasn't meant to get married to Samuel? When would I leave? Why do I keep putting up with his mom? I think I mentioned this earlier, but my mom never liked Sam's family. She could tolerate Sam because he was charming, but my mom is a big believer that a child can never be too different from the family he grew up in. Or in her words, the apple barely ever falls from the tree. I know it's her being overly protective, so I tend to ignore her most of the time. She's this way. My mom was upset with me because I've not told her that I'd been feeling left out for a long time. She told me it was a sign to leave, especially since Sam had not done anything about it since. I had to change the subject rather quickly, asking if it was all still possible to access the money left to me by my late grandfather. I'm his only grandchild, you know, so it was understandable. My mom had reminded me that I promised to use the money when I started to raise my own family. But after remembering the possible financial problems Sam's family might be facing, I thought of taking some money out to help if I could. Maybe if it was what I had to do for the family to see me as one of them, I didn't mind. The amount left was pretty substantial. My mother reassured me that I could take it out any time, and after a few more discussions, I left my mom's house feeling more refreshed than I've been that week. Maybe later on, my mom would accept that I was getting married to Sam. Her "leave before it's too late, and he's not the right man for you, it's getting old." Alright, now to my current dilemma. I called Sam yesterday because I wanted to have a discussion with him. Ever since the day I got caught, I had not properly talked to Sam. We were on good terms, but he was apparently busier these days. So his visits were short. Mine were sometimes uneventful because he wasn't always home. He had promised to meet up in 2 days, and I was glad about it because I'd missed him. So yeah, it was pretty shocking to see him. And when I decided to run some errands and get some food, he was with a strange woman. Someone I'd never seen or heard of. They were both laughing as they got into Sam's car, and I had to blink multiple times to make sure I saw right. After sitting there for some time weighing my option, I drove up to Sam's place and his car was outside, and after listening closely, I heard a woman's voice. However, I could not peek, because, well, it was on an apartment building and I wasn't crazy enough to just barge in there uninvited. Yes, I know, I'm his fiancé, but there were limits to stuff. I went back out without making a sound and called Samuel. He told me he's busy, before abruptly ending the call. If I hadn't seen what I'd seen, I'd have assumed it was work. Sam wasn't the type that liked being disturbed when at work because it greatly affected his concentration. Well, this I've seen firsthand. In a nutshell, whatever he was doing with that woman was something that he cannot be distracted by. The drive back to my house was a terrible one, and I wanted to cry so badly, but I simply couldn't. So all the pain I felt was bottled up inside, and I woke up feeling horrible. And I'm patiently waiting for Sam to arrive. He's going to have to explain what he was doing with a stranger because I certainly will not keep quiet and ignore it when we have plans to get married. Anyways, guys, I'll update you when things get real. Update number 2, 3 days later. The first thing I did when I saw Sam was to ask why he didn't have time to speak to me the day before. He had repeated himself, saying he was too busy to take any calls properly. When he had not elaborated, I had told him that I saw him with another woman and I was yelling at the top of my lungs because I was very upset. To my dismay, Sam tried walking out because he was upset. I'd asked him why he had lied, and he retaliated by asking why I spied on him. It was a good question on his part, and I was at loss for words. My speechlessness got worse when Sam told me that the woman had been, his cousin. I hadn't believed him at first, obviously, but then he showed me proof on his cell phone. Sam told me that his cousin was somebody he had not seen in years, and he picked her up from the airport and stayed with her in his apartment, and they caught up. It was apparently Corinne, and she's getting married soon, like me, which was why she had returned to be with her long-distance love. I'd never felt so stupid in all my days, and I didn't even know how to begin to apologize, if I was even going to. I was a mess at that point, and I could not imagine how bad Sam had felt. I had accused him falsely and watched him and his cousin because of my insecurities. This time, when he turned around to leave, I didn't stop him. He told me he would see me later, but my shame-filled self needed some alone time before that would happen. So that night, I went to see my friend because I really needed somebody to talk to. We had gone to get some drinks because I felt so bad and kept crying all through it, and after hearing everything I had to say, she was surprised. She told me that something was wrong with my story and kept asking if I let anything out. Then she said something about Sam hiding something from me. She mentioned being suspicious of the fact that he had not just told me that he was going to see a family member, and as she spoke, I realized she was right. He could have said, I'm with my cousin, and I'd have let him be. Instead, he opted to leave me and my wonders to be confused. Later on in the morning, yesterday, I woke up to find out that I had sent Sam a few messages I'd rather not tell y'all. I'd gotten so drunk that the rest of the night was a blur, and I wonder how I managed to get to my place safely. The important thing is that Samuel had read the messages, but had not replied. I saw no calls either, and while I was angry at it at first, it's dissolved now. I'm sad, I'm anxious at the moment, and I've tried to calm myself down, but nothing is working. Sam was to see me later on in the day, but nothing happened. I'm just praying that my insecurity has not ruined my relationship with him. Update number 3, 2 weeks later. So, remember when I was scared of what would happen after sending Sam a few horrid messages? It turns out that it did not even matter. Well, it's more like it mattered way less than I thought it would. Sam has been hurt by my text and had not known what to say to me for some time, which is why he never paid a visit or called. He told me that he understood my anger and then apologized for not telling me about his cousin. I did the same, apologizing for my irrational behavior because, it was his cousin, Corrine. I hated the kind of person I've turned into. Honestly, I was always on edge and overthinking everything. At some point, I thought that Sam was the one who was getting married to Corrine. Other times, I was convinced that they weren't even related. Then, when I simply could not take it anymore, I'd either cry myself to sleep or write a piece of paper and tear it all to shreds. I'm ashamed of all this as I feel a teenager trapped in a 26-year-old body. Maybe it's because this is my first real relationship, so I didn't know how to deal with everything I felt. It's not an excuse for my irrational behavior, and I made sure to make it up to Sam. I'd gotten him clothes from his favorite brand, made sure to cook and send meals I knew that he would love, and sent messages telling him how much I appreciate him. While it was unnecessary, according to Sam himself, I'm sure it helped in some way. I've met with Corrine as well, by the way. She's very lovely, and I feel bad anytime I remember I'd thought so negatively about her. She was even upset with Sam on my behalf, asking him why he didn't tell me that we were related. I guess I've found a friend in her, and that makes me happy. In a family where all members seem to hate me, I at least have somebody who smiles when she sees me. As perfect as everything seems now, I still have my doubts. For one, Sam's family is acting different towards me. It was a subtle movement at first, and I shrugged it off as me just overthinking. That was until Grace mentioned enjoying my presence at dinner. There was an unease in her voice when she said it, so I knew her true feelings towards me had not changed. Why was she being nice was something I did not understand. Also, I overheard one of Sam's conversations some nights ago. He stayed over, which he rarely did, but it was something that made me happy. The conversation was hushed, and it was hard to make the words out, but I got the gist of it. Eventually, it turns out that Sam and probably his family were on the verge of being broke. And the wedding was not helping matters. I felt sad immediately, and I tried to go back to sleep. I've been right, after all. Though it was a mere speculation among others, was it because of the wedding? Or was something else the reason for the financial issues of my fiancé's family? I know that telling Sam I overheard his conversation is not the smartest solution, so, one that doesn't blow up in my face is what I need. I really want some help here. Hopefully, I can get some. Update number 4, 3 weeks later. I made a mistake. And in doing so, I realized that I was only a pawn in this great game that Sam and his family were playing. As much as I hate my nosiness and overthinking, I'm glad that I decided not to stay put, because I've been married to a man who cared about what I could offer him more than me myself. It started with my discussion about Corrine's wedding a week ago. Corrine lives with just her disabled father, by the way, and she supports both herself and him. Her fiancé recently got employed and is putting a lot into the wedding as well, and while I don't think it's wise for them to get married when their financial situation is like this, Corrine's father wants her to get married now. The old man thinks that he won't be around if she keeps on postponing. I can't blame him. Corrine also just sounded excited when talking about her wedding, so I know for sure that she really wants to be with the man she's getting married to. I only hope that he feels the same about her. Things had gone back to normal between me and Sam's family. While talking about Corrine's wedding, there was a sudden silence when it seemed like finances were to be discussed. I found it cute because I knew now that they were in financial trouble. So I offered to help out with the wedding because I had some spare money left by my late grandfather. Sam immediately protested, and back then I thought it was the sweetest thing ever. He made mention of the fact that nothing was going to cause me to use the money I was given. The problem began when I insisted. I don't want his family to go through so much stress when I had money sitting there and waiting for me to use. Sam had gotten annoyed and my, own anger was triggered. Why didn't he want me to help out? Any other person would be grateful if offered help, but he was being unnecessarily stubborn. I hated that he wanted to solve everything by himself, and by the time we had finished arguing, Sam was red in the face like a tomato. After telling me not to use the money at all, he walked out of the house, and once again I felt bad because I was the reason for his anger. If he had not wanted me to use my money, I could have listened to him, but instead I was stubborn. So, I'd gone over to Sam's apartment, but he wasn't there. So I left myself to go in, determined to apologize to him, and things were fine between us before I caused the argument, and I wanted them to go back to how they were. However, when I heard him come in, I panicked, and I hid behind the curtain in the living room. Lord knows if seeing me would upset him even more, since I came uninvited when we were in the middle of an argument. As I berated myself for taking such a drastic step, I heard him mention paying back some people he owed money to as soon as he got married to me. The more I listened, the more I realized that Grace knew that my grandfather had left me money. I realized that their family was in debt after Sam's father messed up with the wrong people. Sam tried to fix his mistake along with his siblings, but he had gotten into more trouble after some of the money got stolen. The rest was gambled away and spent during another family crisis. I never knew that they faced so many troubles, because all seemed well whenever I would go to visit. This was why they never spoke about their financial situation at dinner. The more I listened, the more everything made sense to me, and I felt stupid and used. Thankfully, I managed to leave Sam's apartment without him seeing me. Maybe tomorrow morning he'll learn that I'll come to visit. All I knew was that I wasn't going to let anybody spend the money I was given because of some irresponsible decision made by a family member. I had to find a way to leave before the day of the marriage, hopefully without Sam or his family finding out that I know the truth. Update number 5, 2 months later. As hard as it was to execute the plan my mom and I came up with, it was worth it. I'm no longer engaged to Sam, and while his family may hate me now, I can't care less. Sam had definitely tried to explain himself, but I was having none of it. He lied and tried to rob me of my money while we were married, and his entire family was in on it except Corrine. I don't think she knew, and I loved watching her get married. Hers was a month before mine, and while the preparations were hectic, the small wedding took place, and both the bride and groom were happy. I even got to see Corrine's father and understand why he was so scared he wouldn't see his daughter's wedding. Ooh. I wish Corrine's happy married life is going to continue. And while I know I said she was a good friend, I doubt that I'll keep talking to her after her family tried to do this to me. I've gone to my mom's place the day after learning the truth from Sam's conversation over the phone. It was partly because I felt that Sam would look for me in my apartment, but mainly because I knew my mom was the only person who could offer a solution. She was against my marriage to Sam right away, and she would most likely give me the answer I was looking for. She was upset after hearing the entire thing, but she told me to stay put and act like I knew nothing. After staying with her for a few days, I returned home. Well aware that I'd ignored Sam's calls, I lied and told him I was sick. See, I went to stay with my mom for some time, and that was that. The plan for Corrine's wedding were plotted and executed, and 2 weeks before my own wedding, my mom and I booked a flight to a different country. I know, it's shocking, but while I did have fun on my impromptu holiday, I knew I had to go back and face the inevitable. But that was after the date fixed for the wedding. The family wasn't dumb enough to waste so much money when I was unreachable, and a substantial amount had been spent on the wedding, and I was a bit glad. Sam was surprised when I told him I knew everything. To his credit, he didn't bother begging for forgiveness, knowing that he messed up. I called off our engagement as well and then walked out of his apartment. Later, he did try to get me to forgive him and help him out, and he's doing that even now. But that won't happen. I hope he's eventually understanding and forgets about getting me back. The best part about everything was Grace's reaction to it all. She had called and exploded in my ear. I had told her to look for someone else to pay off her family's debt before ending the call. She better not try anything funny, because I won't hesitate to report her to the police. My mother is doing her best to hook me up with somebody, by the way. I live with her now, and while I'm sick and tired of hearing about different men, I feel safe here. I don't know if another man is in my future, but if he's coming soon, I hope he's nothing like Sam, because I won't hesitate to make him pay.